Good evening and welcome. Welcome one and all to the Newark Trust for Education's first mayoral forum on education. My name is Ross Danis. I have the honor of being the President and CEO of the Newark Trust for Education, but more about that in just a moment. Allow me to introduce the person who leads this school, Science Park High School, Newark, New Jersey, Mr. Thomas.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, parents, community members, Madam Chair, advisory board members, and students. I bring you greetings on behalf of my students, my parents, and my staff. Here at Science Park High School, we have 4 pillars that we stand on. The 4 pillars are truth, peace, community, and honor. I would like to read the community pillar to you this evening. It goes as follows. Although we are a highly competitive school, we are also a compassionate family. We are a large, multi-racial, multicultural institution. We value all members. At all times, our community will be inclusive and welcome of students of all races, religion, genders, economic classes, and sexual orientation. We are all valuable parts of one community. Once again, we are all valuable parts of one community. I've had the honor of speaking before the community on several occasions. As always, I would like to leave you with this series of thoughtful questions and answers. How do you fix education in a community? One school at a time. How do you fix a school? One classroom at a time. How do you fix a classroom? One student at a time. A vital ingredient to improving a community starts and ends at the heartbeat of the classroom. It starts and ends with the hearts and soul of our children. We must become a community that works as one, with one goal in mind. If our goal is to improve the outcome for our students, we must band together. Our sons, our daughters, and quite frankly, our collective futures depend upon it. So, how do you improve a community? The answer is simple. One student at a time. Thank you, and welcome to Science Park High School, home of the Chargers.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. So once again, let me just point out a few folks in the room who have been making this experience possible. We're being simulcast tonight and videotaped by the Interfaith Ministries television. 3 cameras. We're streaming live on Newark Trust's Facebook page. We're streaming live on the Newark Trust's website. You could go there right now or tell your friends, and there's a link that they can connect to actually see the broadcast live. Also know that WBGO is taping this evening and plans to rebroadcast across their airwaves, not only Newark's best jazz radio station, but the world's best jazz radio station. So there will be multiple times for our citizens to engage in this very important conversation. As I mentioned, my name's Ross Danis with the Newark Trust for Education. The Newark Trust is Newark's first independent local education fund. We have a really clear mission. We provide credible information to parents, to policymakers. We strategically align resources to create better opportunities for young people. And we convene conversations like this, where we raise the level of civic discourse. We hold the candidates forums around the advisory board, forums like this, and we plan to host many more in the future as part of our Committee of Advocates program, which has a long history in our city. I'm honored to work for a board of trustees that represent over 250 years of experience working in Newark on behalf of Newarkers and in the service of Newark's children and their future. And I'd like to ask them to stand so that we can recognize them at this time. Irene Cooper Bosch from the Victoria Foundation, John Schreiber, the president of MJ-PAC, Shanae Harris from the Prudential Foundation, the chair of our board, Dr. Ken Price. Dr. Price, where are you? Marcia Brown, Junius Williams, also on our board. Ray Ocasio. We also have Gabriella Morris. Where is Gabriella? There she is. Thank you so much, Gabriella, for being with us tonight. Others as well. I'm not going to go down through that entire list, but I just want to reiterate how honored we are to serve them and Michelle Ashton from the Charter School Association, and Barbara Reisman from the Schumann Fund. Of course, all of them, one and all, very much a part of our work and our success. So let me ask all of you a quick question, a couple of questions. Raise your hand if you live or work in Newark. Look around the room. Keep your hands raised if you go to school in Newark, have gone to school in Newark. Or related to somebody who goes to school in Newark. One thing all of us have in common, no matter where we come from, no matter what we look like, no matter where we live, we're here tonight on a Thursday night in October, the very night of a new episode of Scandal.
Y'all better hurry up and get it going.
For one reason only. For one reason only. And that's because all of us are united by the very fact that we care about our children, we care about Newark and Newark's future, and we're in this together. We're so honored to be a part of this journey with you. With that, allow me to turn the microphone over to Antoinette Baskerville-Richardson, the chair of Newark's Advisory Board.
Thank you, Ross. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out here this evening. My name is Antoinette Baskerville-Richardson. I'm the president of the Newark Board of Education, also a member of the board of the Newark Trust for Education. And on behalf of both of those entities, again, I welcome you here this evening. And I welcome you to the beautiful Science High School. We've come here this evening to hear our mayoral candidates speak about the very important, the crucial issue of education. Education is not only important to us, but the eye of the country is on Newark when it comes to which way forward for education. So what we will hear from our candidates tonight is just that. Their vision, their views on which way forward for education in Newark, and what the role of the next mayor should be in bringing that vision to fruition. I will now introduce our moderator for this evening, Marcia Wilson Brown. Marcia is the Associate Dean for Program Development in the School of Public Affairs and Administration at Rutgers University, Newark. She has spent over 15 years in higher education at Rutgers Newark, including 12 years as Vice Chancellor for Student and Community Affairs. Marcia clerked for Chief Justice Robert Willits in the New Jersey Supreme Court. She was admitted to practice in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and U.S. federal district courts and the U.S. Supreme Court. Marcia has spent more than 30 years in community development advocacy in Newark, working on housing, education, and youth development and nonprofit leadership issues. There's so much more I could say about Marcia, but I have to just give you a few tidbits because of time. Marcia is the founder of Dare to Fly Productions and the newly minted Newark Repertory Theater Company, committed to engaging and educating audiences with bold, dynamic, and diverse theater. Her daughter is a graduate of Science High School, yay, and a practicing physician in Newark. And Marcia now holds the title of grandmother. I am now very proud to welcome to the stage our moderator for this evening, Marcia Wilson Brown.
Good evening. I am so honored to be here with you this evening. I can't think of a more important place that we all could collectively be than to be in a school talking about education. This forum is about schools, it's about education, and I have taken the liberty to subtitle it, "What kinds of schools do our children deserve? And what will the next mayor do to help make them the great places that they ought to be?" Is that okay? This morning, as I was coming to work, I happened to see I think a grandmother and her young boy walking to school. And I know they're walking to school because they have books in his hand. And I stopped to look at them because there were smiles on their faces. The little boy seemed so excited. The grandmother was holding his hand. And it seemed to me that they were excited about the thought of him going to a place we call school. And I thought to myself, this is the way it should be. This is the way our children should feel when they get up in the morning, excited about going to school. They should be great places where their imagination and their creativity and their ability to see themselves as doers and actors, the belief and confidence in themselves that their life is going to be a good one. That's the way that they should feel. But you and I know that oftentimes that's not the case. And our schools are places that sometimes our children are not made to feel excited. Sometimes they even feel unsafe. But tonight, it should be about trying to identify the best ideas that exist among these 4 talented young people to try to make schools the great places that they ought to be in Newark. Newark is a great city. Great city. A great city. And to have a great city, you gotta have great what? People. There are great people in this city. And we are worthy of great schools. Our children are worthy of great schools. And so tonight, I want you to think about this place as a sacred space. Not a church, not a temple. It's a sacred space though, because in here are hearts and minds and young people and seniors and elders and wise people. And we want to put all that together to grow something that we've never seen before, something that might work. There's 8 months to this election. And I say maybe we ought to stay here all night to make this thing work. But whether we do or not, we have 8 months to work together to show the world, all those people who will be listening to this broadcast from WBGO, whose audience is international. And you know, we have wanted to stream this to South Africa. because our sister cities in South Africa are very interested in what goes on here in Newark. Of course, we also wanted to say something to Nelson Mandela, but we weren't able to make that happen. But they will be listening to us through this broadcast, and I would like for them to be able to say, those people in Newark, they are relentless about change. Those people in Newark, they care about their children. Those people in Newark tonight went beyond camps and campaigns and platitudes to come up with real ideas and principles. Because what? Because they love their children. So I thank you for coming to this space tonight. I welcome the parents, the teachers, the students, the district staff, the press, and I particularly want to acknowledge just 3 groups of people. All the students in the audience, raise your hand. Let's give them a hand. I mean, I hope they're not missing scandal, because if I were their teacher, I wouldn't want them to warn them. And the grandmothers who are raising children, please raise your hand. Let's give them a hand. Yes, absolutely. And the teachers who are in the audience, please, let's give them a hand as well. So I want to thank the trust, Ross, Tanisha, Shanae, the great principal of this great school, for co-sponsoring this event. And let me just share with you a few housekeeping items. To help me make this process go smoothly is a Rutgers Newark student. Her name is Isabel Denise, and she is going to be the timekeeper. She will ring the bell, so to speak, when a candidate exceeds his time allotment. Second, other than in the introduction and at the conclusion, I'm going to ask you that you hold your applause. One of the things that we're trying to do tonight, and I'm so thankful that these candidates in their maturity and seasoning agreed with me that tonight ought to be about a discussion, right? Because these are children. So it ought to be a discussion. And maybe we can persuade each other about what needs to happen in school. So we want to hear it. And we got a lot of questions to ask. We're going to try to get as many in as we can. But rest assured, this is part 1. This is not the end. Third, we will be taking questions from the audience. I think they told you outside that if you write your question down on a card, we're going to try to get to it. And what we're going to do different is we're not going to wait till the end for the audience's questions to be read. A student is going to pick the questions out of the audience bowl. Where is that, Tanisha? Where? Okay, great. And they'll hand it to me, and then I'll read it. We want to make sure that parents, students, and teachers are represented in the audience mix. But we're not waiting till the end. I'm going to intersperse those questions with my conversation with the candidates. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to questions, although they're going to do a 90-second opening and a 90-second closing. And when they, at 1.5 minutes, they'll get the bell. Ding, ding, well, ding. And then when they only have 30 seconds left, it'll be a ding, ding. And then if they exceed that, we're just going to shut their mic off. Because we could talk to them afterwards. And we have 8 months to talk to them. So now I really want to see how much we can get done tonight. And now, to begin, ladies and gentlemen, this evening, please welcome 4 of the city's most talented young minds to ever emerge in an election. Sons of Newark, educated here and beyond, public servants, and all of them good looking. demonstrates that you guys are superstars. So you can't sit down. I didn't get a chance to introduce them, but starting immediately in front of me, Shavar Jeffries. Darren Sharif. Anibal Ramos. And Raz Baraka. Now, I did ask you guys, this is your first, big applause, and the second's gonna be at the end, right? But I want that applause for me too. I may not be as good looking as them, but okay, you guys can sit down, please. First of all, I want to thank each of you for participating in this forum and agreeing with me and this audience that our conversation tonight on education goes beyond your specific platforms, and we want to dig deep. We want to get your thoughtful ideas, not just about what education is, but about what is realistically possible for the mayor's office to do. Because sometimes we ask them questions as if we think that they control everything about, particularly education, and they don't, right? They don't. So we want to be mindful of what those limits are, but within those limits, we want to know from them what it is that they think they can do. So they're going to give a 90-second introduction, and we're going to start with Mr. Jeffries, and then go on down. And then we're going to start with some really nice questioning about what it is that they think and believe about not only schools, but schools in a city in which they were all born and raised. So, Mr. Jeffries.
Good evening. Thank you, Marshall Brown. It's a blessing to be with you. Blessing to be with my colleagues in this fight for the future of the city. My name is Shavar Jeffries. I'm running for mayor. I'm running for mayor because I love this city. This city has given me everything. I grew up like many young people in the city of Newark. I was the son of a teenage mom. Like too many young people in the city of Newark, I would lose my mom to gun violence. And also like too many young people in the city of Newark, my father wasn't around. But because of my grandmother, because of the people of the city of Newark, and because of a great education, I'm in front of you tonight. And I've worked essentially my entire professional career to give back to the people of Newark what's been given to me. So for 14 years, I've represented Newark parents and Newark children in avid litigation that has literally pumped hundreds of millions of dollars into the Newark public schools. I worked for several years with Education Law Center on a major special education case that pumped millions of dollars into Newark public schools to serve our children with disabilities. I've represented parents and done cases involving teachers and parents who've been subjected to political retaliation for standing up for the needs of our young people. I've represented thousands of kids also in after-school tutoring cases as well. I also have experience in safety, and we know if we don't have safe streets and neighborhoods, that's going to affect what happens in our classrooms as well. In this election, we need leadership with results. There's going to be a lot of talk, a lot of conversation in this election, but we got to have a CEO for the city of Newark that can move this city forward in a way that produces more jobs for Newarkers, better quality schools for our young people, and safer streets and neighborhoods for all Newark residents and stakeholders. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffries. I just want to remind people that we have an agreement. We're here to listen, and we're here to respect. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody here tonight. I'd like to thank Marcia. I'd like to thank the Newark Trust for Public Education. One of the most important responsibilities for a mayor is to ensure that every single child in this city receives the kind of world-class education that will allow them to compete on the world stage. And I'm absolutely convinced that right in our city, amongst all of our stakeholders, our colleges and universities, our corporations, our big businesses, our community-based and nonprofit organizations, and most importantly, the parents and caregivers working together can accomplish that goal. Over the last 3 years, as a Central Ward councilperson, I've worked with every single one of those stakeholders to make investments in kids, in our communities. We have 4 building-based computer labs in the Central Ward, one right across the street at New Hope, one at Pilgrim Baptist Church, one at 440 Washington Street, and working with NJIT, they're making a $25,000 investment in a building-based computer lab and learning center at Oscar Miles. Last month, I took a trip with a member of the Newark Public Schools to MIT to meet with the head of their media lab so that thousands of our children can learn how to code and become computer programmers. I brought Newark Public Schools, NJIT, and hopefully we'll bring Panasonic to the table because Panasonic has a technology that can be used by MIT to create a special video game for kids who have physical disabilities. So this election should be about, not about plans, not about theories, but what have we actually done to make those important investments in our people and in our community. And I look forward to a spirited discussion about how we're going to move our city forward and concentrate on education. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Aníbal Ramos Jr. and I too am a candidate for mayor of the great city of Newark. I want to thank Ross Stannis and the Newark Trust for Education for hosting this forum. I want to thank our very courageous moderator, Marsha Brown, for agreeing to moderate this discussion. And I also want to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. Most definitely education is important for the great city of Newark. I had the privilege of sitting on the Newark School Advisory Board when this particular school was built. Science High School represents one of the finest schools that we have in the entire city of Newark. And as your next mayor of the city of Newark, I will be a leading advocate for quality public education in this city. I'm running for mayor, not superintendent of schools, and I believe that your next mayor of this city needs to focus on supporting our schools, advocating on behalf of children and parents, and partnering with our school district. And as your next mayor, I will work hard every single day to partner with the school district to remove those obstacles that often impact our children's ability to learn. And we're talking about creating safe passages to schools as part of our public safety plan, and ensuring that every children in Newark has access to a healthy environment where they live, that they have access to quality health care, and more importantly, that we deal with some of the food desert and sustainability issues that we have in this community. I'm clear of what my role will be as mayor, and that is to support, by removing many of the obstacles that exist every single day, quality public education in the city of Newark.
Thank you, Mr. Ramos.
So I want to thank Marsha Brown and Newark Trust for Education for all this drama tonight.
Yes.
It's wonderful. My name is Raz Baraka, and when I become mayor, we become mayor. And so there's a few things. I like to disagree that it is about ideas. It is about what you believe and what you think. So I don't want to discredit anybody up here. We're all very intelligent individuals. I think this is the first campaign in Newark that I've ever seen people putting out policy papers. I put out one, everybody else put out a policy paper. This is the first opportunity that people in Newark get a chance to read what it is that we think about the city of Newark. And I also disagree, while you're not the superintendent of schools, you're the superintendent of the city. So the reality becomes, the thing, why this is so important is that Newark Public Schools is not separate from the city of Newark. And that's the problem. The school system has been functioning by itself apart from Newark as a whole. That's why it's so much contention, because people are making decisions for families as it relates to education and not including the families in that discussion. That's number one. Number two, the city has a responsibility to use all of its resources to bring to bear to help our students succeed in this city. So the philanthropic community, the universities, the private sector, the public sector, the nonprofit community, all have to be galvanized and organized to support our young people in this school. Yes, it takes more money to educate Newarkers than other cities because other people have more money to do those kinds of things. We need public subsidy, and we need the institutions in this community to be able to help our students succeed.
Thank you, Mr. Baraka.
Rutgers University and NJIT has a responsibility to the students in our community.
Thank you, Mr. Baraka. what's good about this is that everybody got an equal opportunity to go over, right? They did, right? Everybody did. So that's good. So, well, because Shavar stayed within. So do we have a gold star? He stayed within the time period. But going forward, we are going to shut the mics down if you go over, because we really need people to exercise some discipline. Thank you. So we're going to start off with a question in which you get 2 minutes to answer, and maybe you can expand on some of your comments in your opening statement. And that is, how will your campaign for mayor strengthen the movement for quality schools? And so let's start with Mr. Baraka.
Well, that gives me an opportunity to leave off where I just started, right? Start where I just left off. Well,
We'd love to go more in depth.
yes. Well, my campaign, and that's what I mean by when I become mayor, we become mayor, because everybody has a responsibility to transform this community. So my campaign is not just a campaign about myself. So I don't talk about myself the entire time that I'm before the people. I talk about us as a collective, as a community. All of us have a role and responsibility to play. Whether you're a parent, whether you are in a philanthropic community, whether you're a private sector or business owner, whether you're a teacher or a principal or a student, all of us have a responsibility to make sure that our school systems our school system is top notch, and that school system is a part of a larger system. Right now, Newark Public Schools is being run separate from the entire body. Your brain can't function without your heart, and your heart don't function without your brain. You need both of those things in concert to have a healthy body, and that's absolutely what's positively happening. So we close schools and neighborhoods and push people to another neighborhood and don't think about the problems that one neighborhood has with another neighborhood. We don't think we tell kids they can't eat in school without thinking about the level of poverty that people have while we privatize the schools at the same time. We talk about co-location of schools without involving the people in that neighborhood. So it's not really a co-location, it's really like a colonization, because co means two, right? So co means that we both work together to make sure that the schools work. So Newark would have a plan like New York that says if the building is co-located, then the school is responsible for making sure that the school has the same amenities as the co-located school has. This level of inequity that permeates this district every single day is something that we have to attack. And my campaign is a voice against this inequality, and it's also a voice of inclusion that brings all of our wards and all of our people together to fight for our children in this city.
I want to, before the other candidates answer, I want to piggyback over something that Mr. Baraka said about campaign. Let me just define it a little bit further. When I say your campaign, I'm talking about the candidate, I'm talking about the candidate's supporters, I'm talking about the values and the vision that underlie that campaign. So thank you for helping me to clarify that and to make that distinction. So as you answer, envelop, that definition within your answer. So we'll move to Mr. Ramos.
This campaign is going to offer me, along with the other candidates, a very unique opportunity to lay out our plan and vision as it relates to the public education in the city of Newark. We're all committed to having high-quality public schools, and my mission as a candidate is to identify what the city of Newark can do, what the mayor of the city can do in order to advance the advancement of quality public schools in the city of Newark. And there are a number of areas that I'm committed to as your next mayor to invest in as a city. We all want to see our district return to local control. The thing I always tell parents and advocates is with local control comes a greater sense of local responsibility. And that means as your city government, we have to be prepared to invest in greater after-school programming activity. That means we have to be prepared to invest in summer enrichment activities. That means that your mayor has to have a good working relationship with the superintendent of schools. I want to create an office on education within the mayor's office in order to highlight some of the issues that are going on in the Newark School District. I want to be able, as a mayor, to have a community advisory council on education work with me that represents stakeholders such as parents, teachers, and students that are going to advise me on those major issues that are going on in education. And the mayor of the city of Newark stands as a leading advocate, not only in New Jersey, but across the country when it comes to public education and public education reform. And as your next mayor, I take that responsibility serious, and I also will work to ensure that the city of Newark provides adequate resources to our public school system. Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought there were 2 bells. There was 1 and 2, I'm sorry.
Okay. You can't hear the bell?
Can't hear the-
Well, we'll have to ask everybody to turn on their applause, because we have a mic that's on the bell. Hit it. Let's hit it. Can you hear that?
I got it.
Okay. So if the audience kind of tones it down, we'll be able to hear that bell.
So Marcia, so my vision, it's simple, it's gonna be a continuation of what I've started to do 3.5 years ago. I think what people wanna hear is not lofty goals, not what they're gonna do once they get into office. When I ran for office 4 years ago, I said, we've gotta build partnerships that change things in a way that we can measure. Right in this school, this will be our 4th year of having our learning community where residents from throughout this city can come and take a variety of classes, where kids can come for homework help. In my opening, the reason I mentioned of the trips that I made to MIT, so that all of our kids can code and become computer programmers, because in real time, we have to do something. And so I disagree that we have to wait until we become mayor. For 3.5 years, every single day that I got up, I created partnerships. I may have differences of opinion with the superintendent, but that did not prevent me and the superintendent from working with Panasonic, from working with NGIT to develop an important device for our kids who have physical disabilities, create a special video game so they can increase their manual dexterity. Thanks to cooperation with the mayor's office and members on my council, I'm investing $1 million to totally gut rehab the basement of Renaissance Towers. So all of these stakeholders that we're talking about, our corporations, our universities, can have the space to develop programs, activities, and products that help our kids move forward. So I've been acting 3.5 years as the mayor. I will replicate what we did in the Central Ward for the other 4 wards in the city.
Great. Mr. Jeffries.
Jesus said something very powerful. He said that you shall know a tree by its fruit. And so that means the words we say don't have as much power as the actions we take and the fruit of our actions. And so the vision I'm going to have as mayor is a continuation of the work I've been doing for 14 years. So right now in the city of Newark, there's hundreds of millions of dollars to support our children because of some of the work myself and other lawyers did in Abbott litigation. There's extended learning time in many of our schools because of the work that we did on the school board. Our kids who have disabilities have additional resources and related services because of the work we did in the MA versus Newark Public Schools case. We passed the benchmark for the return of local control because a lot of people talk about it, but we actually did the work when I was the president of the board and scored the highest score of all time on the benchmark with respect to return of local control. I've also been a strong fighter for more options for our families and for our parents. Traditionally, what would happen is your politicians, your middle class people had a lot of options, low income people did not. And so I fought very hard to make sure low income families had some of the same options your political elites have had. So whether that's public charter options, whether that's new options within the Newark Public Schools like Bard Early College, Newark Leadership Academy, Eagle Academy, Girls Academy, this gives the power to you, not to the politician. When you make a choice, you have the power. When you don't have choices, politicians make choices for you. And so my vision is a continuation of community empowerment, parental empowerment, more resources for our educators, more choices for our families, more after-school programs for our young people, a holistic vision that'll make sure we send more of our kids to and through college.
So I want you to remember, and I hope some of you have pencil and paper. Again, we have 8 months to migrate from this point to more definitive plans for what the mayor's office will do on these critical issues. So my question had to do with how will what they do as mayor or their campaigns produce plans to help strengthen the movement for quality schools. So I wrote down some things, but I'm also going to invite our candidates to contribute to something else that we could put in writing that you'll be able to see. This is hard, you know, like in the heat of a campaign and in the heat of a discussion to always remember what our candidates are saying, but some concrete things that I wrote down. Creating an Office of Education, not sure that's ever been done, having a community advisory board, council on education, continuing to promote after-school homework programs, building a partnership, maybe more workable partnership with the superintendent's office, especially around children with disabilities. Extended learning time and developing program or developing school options. So I'm sure there are many, many more ideas, but we've now recorded some very specific things that have come out of this. And I want to tell you something about these 4 guys. You know, I said earlier, they're tremendously educated, they're bright, they're wise for their age. They're also very good looking, although I'm a little older for them. But one of the things that they've done that you guys don't know about is that they are part of the Rutgers University Gus Henningberg Fellows Program. We've never had a candidate who was participating in an academic lab, so to speak, on leadership. They go to class at Rutgers and they go to talk about the civic culture. They go to talk about what's happening with metropolitan cities. They are connecting with scholars and experts. So they're not just running off at the mouth. They're engaging themselves in actions that I don't think any other candidate, in my knowledge, I've been with the city over 30 years, even though I'm only 27. But in my knowledge, I have never, ever seen candidates emerge like them with the kind of talent that they have. Give them a hand. All of them. So I want to go back to this question of local control that somebody raised, and ask a 2-part question, and then this time we'll start in the middle with Mr. Ramos, and then go to Mr. Sharif, Mr. Jeffries, and then to Mr. Baraka. Do you believe that local control will return? And if so, what will make that happen? And let's say that there may have to be some kind of special enabling legislation so that then the mayor will have to deal with the governor's office. And if that's the case, how would you advocate with the governor, if at all, around local control?
I, like so many people in this room, look forward to the day when the city of Newark has self-determination and rights to run its school district. You know, I favor local control. Obviously, the mayor of the city of Newark stands in a very strong and advantageous position in advocating with the governor's office, with the Essex County legislative delegation, in ensuring that our district has the right in the future to have the ability to have local control. And I offer, as a method of governance, a hybrid board, a board that includes all stakeholders, that really represents the fact that it takes a village in order to raise a child here in the city of Newark, to have a quality public school education here in our city. And our hybrid board would incorporate, as a means of transition, representatives that are appointed by the governor's office, representatives that are elected by the residents of our city, and also representatives that are appointed by the mayor of the city of Newark. And I think together, we have demonstrated over the last 10 years that the Newark Public Schools has made significant progress in key areas of governance, finance, personnel, that entitle us to have the right to have self-determination and, more importantly, to have local control.
Thank you. Now, you see how much better they're getting at? We don't even have to ring the bell. They're just doing it. Okay.
I'm going to be short, so you won't have to ring the bell. I think every person in this room wants local control because it is a fundamental tenet of self-determination. But the more important question that we should ask and wrestle with is, what is the plan when we get local control? There's so much that is political, and people want to get local control for all the wrong reasons, because they got a little group here that they want to hook up, they want to give contracts to these individuals. And so let's be real if we're having this conversation. The state took the schools from us for very specific reasons. And some of those reasons we have to safeguard against so that when we get local control, we are ready to receive it. I would like to see us having discussions and planning sessions when the community informs us to say, what are we going to do when we get local control, to get input and to find out areas where all our experts can come together so that we get local control, we have a plan to operate on. We've got a plan that the Newark Public Schools is working on now. That's great expectations. There are important tenets and priorities in that plan. We ought to have community meetings, look at that plan as a benchmark or as a framework, but get the smartest and brightest people from our universities, from our corporations, to create a plan so that when we get local control, then the people who we elect to office, whether or not it's hybrid, I said I was going to finish, right?
Yeah.
Hybrid or elected, we implement a plan that is informed by the input that we put in it.
Okay, thank you.
I think this is another area where I'm able to distinguish myself from some of my opponents. Every time around election time, your politicians come and talk about a variety of different things. We've been in state takeover for 18 years, and there's a law called QSAC that determines when we get local control. There's only been one time in 18 years that the Newark Public Schools has passed the governance benchmark for the return of local control, and that was based on the work I'm very proud to have done when I was the president of the Newark Public Schools. And so when we think about a mayor, we need a mayor to get things done, because every 4 years people are going to talk and talk some more and then talk after that. But you need a mayor to actually get things done, to move the needle, not only with local control, but to move the needle in getting our kids to and through college. 75% of the jobs today require education past high school, and we barely get 1 in 2 of our children out of high school. So we have to have the conversation of how do we do that, and who's going to be able to lead the city in a way that produces actual results on those issues. Not more talk, but actual results. And I'm very proud throughout my entire career that produced results for the children of the city of Newark, that are sending more of our kids to college and getting them out of college. Whether it's work we did on the school board to extend learning time at many of our schools, to create new public schools, whether it's creating schools from scratch that are sending 90% of their kids to and through college. That's the record I bring to the table. And the only way we're going to get different results if we have leadership that is experienced with producing those kind of results.
Thank you.
I just have to, before you steal my time, I have to disagree with the professor that all of us have been doing work for 20 years. And CUSAC didn't exist for 18 years, by the way. But we've been doing work, the work that I do every single day for 20 years. I have 2 kids, 2 or 3 or 4 kids at NJIT now in full scholarships because of the work we did at Central High School. And the parents did, not just me, of making sure that NJIT gives scholarships to students at Central High School. The graduation rates that are being played with around the city are being used to push people's specific agendas. So we need to get the real graduation rates. That's number 1. I think it's also hypocritical for us to say we need self-determination and then go around and say maybe we should have a hybrid. No one wants a hybrid when it comes to the municipal council. Maybe we should get the state to appoint 3 people on the municipal council. Maybe we should get the mayor to appoint 3 council people and then get you guys to vote on the other 3. That's ridiculous. To me, we can't compromise our right to vote. And the state took over the schools not because we were crazy, but because Abbott versus Burke became the law. Because the state realized that they were going to be responsible for funding schools in poor districts. If you look at CUSAC, there are districts all over the state of New Jersey who did equal to or worse than Newark at the CUSAC report. But they are not state-occupied districts. Newark is, because Newark has $1 billion. That's clear. I'm clear with that. And we have to be clear with that. So, yes, I'll work with the governor, but I'm not going to work with the governor to steal my right to vote.
So the applause may be stealing your time, Raz. The applause. So we're gonna take a minute. We're gonna take a minute to bring it down. Take a minute to bring it down, and we're gonna ask a question from the audience poll. So can we get a question? Did you shake it around a little bit? Okay. Okay, this is from an educator. This is from an educator. Instead of education reform, we must move towards education inform, I-N-F-O-R-M, to reform, R-E-F-O-R-M. How will you speak life into the community of Newark, New Jersey in order to empower the people? Newark Public Schools is not for sale. The people of Newark can make a difference in our schools if you empower the people. So how will you speak life into the community in order to empower them toward reform? I think is probably the best way to answer that question. And this is from an educator. So let's start with Mr. Sharif, and then we'll work out.
You've got to engage the community before you can inform them. And during this campaign, and in every election cycle that we have, residents are bombarded by people knocking on their doors. They're putting things under their doors. They come up with these great platforms. And then after the election happens, everybody goes back to the status quo. And so, like I said again, when the moment that we came into office, we engaged the community. There are places like Pilgrim, there are places like New Hope, there are places like 440. Politicians never go there. They have no interest in providing information to residents and informing them. And so not only did we go there 3.5 years ago, we created and established resources so that we could inform and empower them. And that's the problem now. There's a majority of residents in this town, they want the best for their kids, but they look for engagement that they never get from their elected officials and from their leaders. And so the things that we've been doing here at Science Park High School, we're already working with our university. All of those things are designed to do engagement and to inform the community. Once we provide our people with the information, they will make the right choices. But if we starve them from the information that they need, the only thing that they can depend on are these forms that we have and all the statements that we make that lack substance. And so it's important to engage. When you engage, you can inform. And that's what we've been doing for the last 3.5 years.
Councilman Baraka talked about his record at Central High School. Central High School is what's called a priority school by the state of New Jersey. That means for 3 years in a row, it's been in the bottom 5% of high schools in the state of New Jersey. Central High School is what we call a SIG school. It's what we call a SIG school. That means it's one of the worst performing high schools under his leadership in the United States of America.
Everyone.
Can I have my time? I want to have my time.
Yes.
I want to have all my time. I want to have all my
If you
time.
boo, he's just gonna get more time. If you boo, he's just gonna get more time. So please, let him speak.
Settle down, settle down.
We also have to,
Settle down.
I don't have all my time, because we also have to decide as a city in this election, what values do you support? Because one of the candidates here has a whole movement based upon catcalling, division, incivility, anger, bitterness. And so people have to decide what they want. There's another movement based upon love and respect. But to the point, the priority school means for 3 years in a row it's been one of the 5% worst performing high schools in the state of New Jersey. SIG means it's been one of the worst performing high schools in the United States of America. Your record, not your words, has to drive what we do. How I would empower, now to answer the question, how I would make sure we empower the people of Newark is first local control. You don't have power if the state is making decisions for your own children. In addition to that, giving parents choices so parents can decide what school their child goes to. If your local board tells you what school you go to, your politicians have choices, you don't have power. You gotta have options in order to have power. And then third, you come to information and community engagement. So you need local control, you need choices for families, and then you need robust information sharing as well.
That was good.
Okay.
It's good to be the front runner. You win all the attacks. But let me tell you this. Christopher Surf, a friend of the professor, showed up to Central High School and came in front of our entire student body, and the funders here know this, in front of our entire student body and congratulated Central for the double-digit incredible gains that it has made since I became the principal of that school. Christopher Surf. We have the highest graduation rate than any other comprehensive high school in the city, going back and forth with Eastside. That's new. Our math scores increased from 19% to over 50%. The English scores increased from about 20% to 78, 79%. We have a long way to go, and we've come an incredibly long way. And I would dare him or any of you to come over to Central High School and tell those kids that the work that they've done over there has been a failure. Go tell Timothy Ellis that, who is in the top 10 of his class at NJIT because he was educated at Central High School. That wouldn't happen 10 years ago. It wouldn't happen 20 years ago. So what I do agree is Central was at the bottom of the list when I became the principal, but it's not at the bottom of the list anymore. So let me just say this as well. Let me say this. We are the only school that has not experienced a decline in enrollment. Ask the superintendent that. She's back here, one of the comprehensive high schools. If the school was horrible, parents would take their kids out, but they're rushing them into Central High School. They're rushing them into Central High School. You gotta stop them from coming in. You know what? I would advise that he come over to Central High School. Join the public schools instead of despising them.
What I'm gonna ask every candidate to do is to answer the question and not speak to the other candidates. Don't direct like that. No, like both, I'm saying. We want everybody to honor that. Because otherwise, it becomes, yeah. No, really, am I right?
You're right.
Did y'all hear the rest? We're not gonna have the candidates talk to, yes, everybody. Thank you, Raz.
You're right.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffries, right?
I understand that. You know, everybody want to fight Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah, is everybody gonna agree with that? Okay. Listen, is everybody gonna agree with that? We're not attacking other people or directing questions to other people. I'm just saying, we're not, that's part of the rules. That's part of the rules. Okay. We're not gonna take a break. We're not gonna take a break. We're not gonna take a break. So this next question is another hot one.
Marsha, I didn't get a chance to,
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. See, Brad, got me all rattled up here.
Can you repeat the question? I think I got lost a little bit here, all the back and forth.
Local control.
I think I forgot the question too, Marsha, I don't know.
Local control.
But let me just say that, you know, the voices of our parents and other stakeholders need to be heard in the district's efforts to, you know, improve the quality of public education here in the city of Newark. I support, you know, quality public education system in the city, whether it includes traditional public schools or charter schools. And I believe that as a city, you know, the voices of our parents need to be heard. And I'll give you one example. Back in the spring of this year, I heard from the superintendent's office, because we're losing so many of our 8th graders who are going on to our comprehensive high schools who are picking every other alternative but a Newark high school. They go to parochial schools, they're going out of district, parents are moving out of the city of Newark. County vocational school system has benefited from the exodus of many of our 8th graders who are looking for better alternatives at the high school level, that they wanted to reorganize our local comprehensive high school. And that gave my office an opportunity with months ahead of time and schedule to visit many of those parents, to go with the principal of that particular school and introduce him to many of the parents who were sending their kids to the new Barringer High School, to host a meeting with some of those parents who had expressed some concerns regarding some of the reorganization plans. And I have to tell you that this September, when I was there first day of school, I have been there every week after the transition. The transition has been smooth. The parents feel like they were a part of the reorganization of the school. And a few months into the school year, I have to tell you that the parents at Barringer High School have expressed a greater sense of confidence in the process. So that highlights the importance of parental involvement. And as mayor, one of my goals as far as public education is concerned, is to ensure that the voices of our parents are not lost in the process of us improving our school system.
Thank you. And Mr. Ramos, you're right. That question was about parent empowerment, so I apologize to the audience. It wasn't about local control, it was about parent empowerment. So thank you for being able to rescue that. I'm gonna ask one other question about facilities, and then we're gonna go to the audience bowl again. So Newark has some of the oldest buildings in the country, and I know you guys know that. Our schools need replacement and they need repair. In the last long-range facilities plan, 39 new or replacement school buildings and 28 major school renovations were approved. That's a total of 67 projects. The majority of these projects have been what? Left undone. What must we do to rebuild our schools, and how can the mayor's office help? We'll start with you.
So I want to apologize first for engaging in that. You know, I got hit, so you know, naturally I'm from Newark. I swung back. So so I just want to apologize to you, Marsha, and everybody else. But the reality is, in 2011, Governor Christie agreed to fund 10 schools out of those 50 or some odd schools that Governor Corzine had on a list to rebuild. He refused to do that. He said he was going to do 10. Oliver Street School was one of those schools, right? So we're slated right now in 2015 to have Oliver Street School online in Newark. It's right in the design and construction stage right now. Further than that will be Elliott Street School. But in 2013, the governor also found some money through a grant, almost $500 million, where he's going to fund school construction projects, right? But those school construction projects that he is funding are school construction projects that he agrees with. Some charter schools, not all. I don't know many public schools that are involved in that. So we have to advocate as a city for the schools that we need. I know there's this idea that the schools that we have so much space, there's not enough kids, but there are schools in Newark that are busting out of the seams in the East Ward and the North Ward particularly that need new schools immediately. So our job here is to advocate to Trenton and the state collectively with the private sector, the funders, everybody, the school officials, to say these are the projects that we need in our city and this is why. And begin to engage the governor and Trenton and our legislative team to begin to get the money to build the schools in our community that we need.
Now let me just mention, everybody doesn't have to answer every question. So if you just want to say, you know what, I agree with Mr. Baraka, or I agree with Mr. Jeffries, or I agree with Mr. Ramos, or I agree with Mr. Sharif, that's fine too. But take the floor.
I agree with Mr. Baraka on Elliott Street. But I think every student in our city deserves to have access to a school facility like the one we're in today. And the reality is that many of our school buildings in the city are in disrepair. I think of our Blue Ribbon Harriet Tubman School, which was built in 1875, still a school of excellence. But when you walk through that school, there are many health and safety concerns. And your mayor of this city has to be a leading advocate, working with the Essex delegation, advocating with the governor of the state to ensure that Newark gets its fair share of new schools. But the city itself also has authority in obligating bonds that are utilized for school construction. The city of Newark and the school boards have this joint board called the Capital Controls Board. And every 5-6 years, they meet, they borrow money in order to deal with health and safety projects throughout the city. That's how I was able to get Newark School Stadium done in the North Ward some years back. But think about the challenge that we faced 7 months into office. Elliott Street School burned down. The insurance was able to come up with a limited amount of money toward the construction of new schools. Of that school. I had to testify in front of the Senate and Assembly Education Committee in Trenton to advocate on behalf of the need of a new school. We were able to get many of our elected officials and other stakeholders to advocate, and I believe that the school district at some point even questioned the need for a new Elliott Street School. And after 6 years of advocacy, after 6 years of pressure being placed in Trenton, 2 weeks ago, they finally broke ground on the new Elliott Street School. So it takes a lot of leadership, and your mayor of this city needs to be a leading advocate on behalf of new schools and, more importantly, health and safety projects in this city.
The one thing that I learned about being in the Central Ward and dealing with a lot of the economic development projects is that there is sophisticated financing to get all those projects done. And in addition to advocating, I agree with my two colleagues, when you look at a development project, private sector funds are involved, public sector funds are involved, and these things are called the capital stacks. That's how you finance these projects. So we've got to think of creative, sophisticated ways to fund our schools because the money that we expected to come from our state government, it didn't come. But we have to be able to coordinate with not only the local delegation, our county officials, but also our federal officials to fight for the money that we need for our schools. I always believe that where there's a will, there's a way. The big projects that are being developed in Newark, people wanted them built, so they found very sophisticated ways to finance those projects. Schools and education is the most important investment that we can make in our community. And so the financiers, the investment banks, the public sectors, we can come together and finance the schools that we need to give our kids the facilities deserve to get a proper education.
We're going to need a multifaceted strategy to get our school. The state never wanted to build these schools. We have to be very clear about that. The only reason that the state even committed to build any schools was because of the Abbott litigation. And the Supreme Court of the state of New Jersey had to order the state of New Jersey to build these schools. We were supposed to get 35 new schools. We got exactly 5. We're supposed to get 30 of our other schools to undergo major renovations. We got exactly 0 of those. So we need a multifaceted strategy that's going to have a legal component where we may have to take the state back to court because just like in the Abbott funding side, every year, year after year after year, we have to take them back to court. We also need a political strategy where we work with our assembly delegation and our state senate delegation to continue to push the state to provide the resources. And we need a community organizing strategy where parents' voices are heard as well. The city, of course, can do more to support better facilities. Also, we manage our municipal budget better. And we have to be very clear and mindful of some of the choices we've made on the municipal side. We've seen taxes increase over about 40% in the last few years. We've seen cops laid off. We've seen programs for young people cut. We've seen neighborhood services cut. We did see the council accept a pay raise for themselves after they raised taxes to that degree and laid off cops. If we made different choices there, we would have more resources to help on the facility side. This is not about attacking anybody, but in order to build these facilities, we need money. So we have to look at how do we manage. I'm going to take all my time. I'm going to take all my time. No, if we're going to have the money to help on the facility side, it takes money to help with facilities, so we have to look at how we manage our money. If we manage our money better, we can make better investments for the future of our children and the future of the city of Newark. If we don't examine how we're spending our money, then we're playing games in terms of where we're at.
I know that people have strong feelings in this room, but one of the things that we said earlier is that we have 8 months to migrate to the election. And we ought to be able to hear opinions that are different than us. I thank you, Mr. Baraka, for being able to say that. Because sometimes in the heat of fire, we say things. We have strong feelings. This is a topic that should engender strong feelings. Am I right, Amina? Yes. So let's, though, give room for us to accept differences, because we are not homogenous. So I'm going to read a question now from, we want a student. We want the pink card. We want a student. Okay, here's the question from one of our students. And let's remember, our students are watching us tonight. And I wonder what they think. If you became mayor, what will you do to help the schools that need the most help? So, try to identify a particular school and use that to exemplify the kind of support or practices that you might, if you can. Just because I know that you're going to go over some answers that you've already given. And keep it real. So let's start, Mr. Sharif.
Yeah, I just want to, I promised to answer that important question, but I want to distill this myth that keeps coming out. I'm not going to look at an opponent when I say this, but this whole idea that we would have more money if we didn't lay off all these police, please understand this. Please understand this. When I got elected in office in 2010, we faced a huge budget deficit. We had to make difficult choices. And the choices that we made are allowing us to continue to provide services that we wouldn't have to provide. We could have kept all 1,900 people for the city, but property taxes for residents in that year would have gone up 32%. So it's important when you tell the story to place it in the broader context. Now, when I get to the question of the student, my office this summer, we engaged 25 students through a program that we did. We had interns from Rutgers and from Bloomfield College. Every single week we did community projects. We did cleanups. Bob Kervin came to talk to them. Kim Gibson came to talk to them. We are engaged right now with American History High. They have a grant to do the Kenneth Gibson project. We're going to be interviewing senior citizens in 5 senior places in the ward. That engagement, that experience, it does 2 things. It forges a bond between these young people and the seniors that we deal with, but it gives them the responsibility and the leadership that they need as they move through school.
Thank you. Yes, and then we're going to go back. Yes, Mr. Jeffries, and then we'll go to Mr. Baraka, and then Mr. Raymond.
I would do some of the things that we've done already. So during my time on the school board, I was a strong supporter of what we call Renew Schools, and these are for some of our most struggling schools in the Newark Public Schools. And what we did there is we first added extended learning time so that our young people have more time on task. We put in additional resources and supports and professional development for teachers and for educators. We're adding social services because we have young people dealing with post-traumatic stress and many emotional issues that many of us as adults don't have the resource to deal with, given what's happening in many of our communities. Adult education is being added at those schools. Not only does that help the parents retrain themselves and access better employment for themselves, it helps the parents support their young people in their educational growth as well. And we also added 21st century learning, technologically based learning, where you can have differentiated instruction for children. Not all kids learn the same way. In a classroom of 25, 28 kids present a range and a diversity of different challenges and risks and capacities to absorb education. And so differentiated learning through technology gives teachers the supports and aids they need to have individualized instruction for each child. So all of those resources together, I'm very confident will pay dividends over time in making sure that kids in some of our most struggling schools improve their educational outcome.
Thank you.
So first, we are steeped in a so-called school reform debate that creates this contention that's not really about school reform. It's really about buildings, location, a fight over children. When we start talking about the most needy children in the city, we're talking about bilingual kids, special needs kids, not just on the top, the kids that are LDS severe, LDS mild. We're talking about kids that just came from different countries that don't speak the language, but not only speak the language, have not had an education in their country and are now coming into a public school system that he can fight for and keep. So I'm gonna tell you how we began to transform Central High School, because Central High School fits what I just said. 20% of the kids come into the school that are special needs. 10, 11% of those kids come into the school who do not speak English as their first language. 90% of them have failed the mathematics examination in the 8th grade and the 2 or 3 grade levels behind. 75% of them have failed English the same way. So they come into the school completely behind. So it takes almost a miracle to transform schools. So we got with NYU, we did the broader, bolder approach. We did what Abbott was trying to do and was taken away, so we tried to do it right here at Central High School. We began to have job-embedded staff development. You know, the same way they give Renew schools and charter schools, but not the rest of the schools? We gotta have job-embedded staff development. Allow teachers to have staff development every day. Attacking their tenure is not gonna improve education in the classroom. Improving the teacher's instruction improves education in the classroom. We also have to have extended day. We exclude the first school to extend day, the first school to wear uniforms, the first school to partner with New Jersey Performing Arts Center, the first school to bring social services into the community. We did that with the SIG grant, by the way, the SIG grant, and I'm happy that we got it. And we don't have it We don't have it anymore, and because we're off of it, because we have made incredible gains at Central High School. And those kind of things need to be replicated around the district. And we do a poor job at that. Whether it's a charter school or public school, we do not share ideas and share best practices.
Thank you. Thank you.
Earlier on, I spoke about the fact that the mayor of the city needs to be actively involved in removing barriers that impede a child's ability to learn. And to me, the mayor has an opportunity in the area of recreation to be a big investor in the city of Newark, not only with the school system in general, but focusing on those schools that need the after-school programming and summer enrichment the most. You know, I'm proud to say that in 7 years on the council, I founded one of the city's largest scholarship program. As part of our bi-monthly roundtable with our school principals, we identified issues and concerns that were impeding those schools' ability to be successful, whether it was boarded up and abandoned properties in a particular neighborhood, school safety concerns, traffic concerns, and it became my job as a council person to bring in the resources on the city side to help address some of those issues that concerned our principals. We partnered some of our schools with nonprofit organizations that were successful in getting grants that were able to support activities in those schools. So as your mayor, I want to be a leading advocate in bringing in philanthropic support that's going to support our school district as a whole, but more importantly, concentrates on those schools in our city that need the help the most.
Thank you. Do you hear that? Do you hear that? You hear that? Silence. Beautiful. I want to ask you all to recognize that these 4 gentlemen have done a marvelous job so far, haven't they? And as heated a topic as this is, and I've been in the seats where many of y'all are, when my daughter was in school, I remember being dragged out from science, from a board meeting, because we wanted to talk more than 2 minutes. And so I understand that, but I'm also very proud of the way that you guys are handling this so far. We have a few more minutes to go on this, but I just wanted to take some time to just acknowledge them and how professional they've been. How professional they've been. And even though clearly there are differences of opinion, clearly, that's good. That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. We just have to allow them to have their differences in a very respectful environment by what you do. So I want to thank you also for holding back and doing the best you can to be an example for our young people tonight that we can be in a room, different voices, one vision, better schools, one interest, our children. So thank you. Now, I want to ask a question that's coming from the trust that has to do with their policy advisory group. Their policy advisory group is made up of young people who are coming from the schools of Newark. And the question is, you know, a lot of times what happens in our city is very adult-centric. You know, everything's always what adults do. Even do we have meetings, do we bring our young people in to help drive the conversation? And so the question is, what will you do as mayor to help our young people have a role in the articulation of the policies and the practices that go with running a great city like Newark? So let's start with Mr. Jeffries, and then we'll migrate to Mr. Baraka, and then to Mr. Ramos, and then Mr. Sharif will have the last word.
Among many things that we're going to do is we're going to create a mayor's youth council where we're going to empower young people throughout the city of Newark, all wards of the city, the full diversity of our young people, to be right at my side in making the kind of decisions we make on a range of issues, whether it's safety, whether it's job creation and economic development, whether it's housing, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, to make sure our young people are at the table. So not that they're simply somebody we listen to, but that we empower them with decision-making authority. Our young people are brilliant, they're amazing, they're beautiful, they're geniuses. And so the more we empower them, the more we're going to create a situation where our city can be brighter and bolder. I also want to make sure that young people in our school system, so we have school members on the board, I want to make sure we have even more young people from all of the range of high schools involved in the work of our North Public Schools. Anytime we're making decisions that affect the education of our young people have to be at the foot and at the front and at the center of those decision makings. So both on the municipal side as well as in partnership with the school board, we want to empower young people with decision making authority.
So every decision that we make affects young people, that's period. One thing I love about this debate and about this campaign is that, you know, all these policy papers and ideas are easily to be read, and that people read them and we're gonna repeat the same things over and over and over again. So we have a youth council now. And the difference as the mayor is that you have a wider range. So what we should do is begin to take all of the local leadership at all of the high schools where they've run for office already and are now representing their schools and incorporate all of that into a larger youth organization in the city, a youth council, and then challenge them to begin to engage in real live activity or problems that they're faced with every single day. In school, we call that YPAR, or Youth Participatory Action Research, right? So you get kids who believe that maybe violence is a problem, or they may believe they think that there's not enough art in school as a problem, and they begin to find out why that problem exists, analyze that problem, and begin to use that to galvanize other students around the city to bring together a plan of action to abate that problem. And then the city is responsible for help funding that, help supporting that, raising the philanthropic dollars for that. So we're responsible for supporting those young people in their advocating for the problems that they think are issues for them and their families in the community. Not problems that we think that we want them to work on, but problems that they come up with and engage in themselves. Our job is to support that and give them a voice in this city.
Under the mayor's office on education, I too want to establish, youth advisory council. The city of Newark currently has a mayor's council on youth. It's not active. We need an active council that includes representation from our high schools, charter schools, middle schools throughout the city of Newark, student leaders that can give us feedback on how we are delivering services and, more importantly, how they think our Newark Public Schools is performing. And while other people talk about it, I've done that. Some years ago, when I was charged with the responsibility to oversee a juvenile detention center that was overcrowded under federal consent order, the Honorable Judge Glenn Grant and I together formed a youth advisory council which consisted of youngsters who had been through our juvenile justice system, youngsters who were now part of effective alternative programs, and they were the ones that were telling us and guiding us on the different kinds of services and activities that we were funding and partnering with our community. And we need the same kind of concept to lead the mayor in advocating on behalf of the educational needs of our kids.
This summer, I had a group of young people for 8 weeks. And what we did, they participated in every meeting that we had. We met with developers. They sat in on those meetings. They did research for council meetings. And so it's important to talk about what we're going to do, but it's more important to talk about what we've been doing for the last 3 years. This summer, through our Youth Ambassador program, every single week, those young people were involved in very important activities. Not coming to the office, making copies, not running errands, but really participating in the kind of activities and programs that give them the confidence that when you elevate them to the next level, they can take on more serious and more challenging tasks. So as mayor, I would just elevate what we've been doing for the last 3 years. The more you introduce and expose young people to, the more confidence they will gain that they can take on serious responsibilities. And so I'll continue to build on what we did and have been doing for the last 3 years in my office once I become mayor in 2014.
Did everybody answer? Okay, then I want to ask a commitment question. How many students from Rutgers do we have in the audience tonight? Just stand up. Can we give them a hand because they've come out. They're very interested. Thank you. And many of our students are doing volunteer work in the schools, and we have a great debate team. You guys know about the student Elijah Smith, who's like the top debater in the country. Came from Central, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah. But Science High, all of them. So I want to add, this is my own personal question. I want to ask, if any of you become mayor, would you be willing to allow our students to intern in the city of Newark? Because one of the things we want to do is to develop a talent pipeline from the universities to positions in our city, right? We want, just like you guys came back home after being educated to be public servants, we want our students to stay here in Newark and begin to grow the talent that we need. So can I get a commitment? Just yes, we'll do. Yes, 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 yes. All right, thank you. Now, let's deal with the question that has to do with safety. This is something that goes to all of our hearts. We know that our children can come to the sacred spaces that we call schools, and that they can be hurt. That just shouldn't happen. And I don't know if you do like me, sometimes I just cry because of what they experience and the seeming sense of powerlessness that I don't believe is true, but that sometimes seems to exist about our ability to protect our children. So this question has to do with, what do you think the mayor's office can do to help promote safe environments for our children as they go to school and as they learn in school and are physically there? So thank you. We'll start with Mr. Ramos.
I don't believe we have a greater responsibility than to ensure the safety of our children as they walk to and from school. My crime and public safety plan focuses a lot on creating safe passages for our young people as they go to school, encouraging the investment of technology along some of those corridors where our children walk to and from school. There needs to be a better level of coordination between the Newark Police Department and the Security Department over at the Newark Board of Education so that we can handle crises, deal with prevention, ensure that our schools do have access to optimum technology when it comes to public safety. Too often, as we're out on the campaign trail and in our city council offices, we hear from parents who are concerned about their safety, about the safety of their children as they walk to school. And those concerns extend beyond the traditional school day. You know, the other day I ran into a parent who we identified a recreation program for her son to attend, and the big reason why she didn't want her son to attend that particular program was because she was concerned for his safety when he got out of the program. So as a city, we have to do more to invest resources to ensure that the implementation of our safe school passages occurs, and we need better coordination with the Newark Public Schools Security Department to ensure that we're working together to address crises, but more importantly, doing a better job in terms of prevention.
Thank you, Marshall. Nothing is more important than securing our students and securing the schools. This year, probably around December, we're going to add 25 more police to the Newark Police Force. There are police who work in other places. We're going to speed up their training in the academies. In 2014, we'll get another 25. In addition to that, we are civilianizing our police force. We have a lot of police officers who work in Newark, and they do jobs that civilians can have. So as we hire civilians to pay them to do those jobs, we'll have more of those officers who perform those civilian roles, and they will be available to coordinate with Newark Public Schools, with the Sheriff's Office, with the county police, and with the state police. And so we have to develop a comprehensive plan and focus on every single school, especially after hours, where kids who are walking home from school, kids who are waiting on the school bus to catch the bus, who are victims of crimes of opportunity. And so we have to increase the number of police that we add to City Hall and to our government, and then pair them up and coordinate better with the other agencies to make sure our kids get safe passage coming to school and leaving them at home.
You know, we've heard about maybe bringing 25 cops back, and this is where we have to be clear about our record. This city council has passed budgets that led to the layoff of 170 cops. Now we're talking about bringing 25 back. We've lost hundreds more via attrition, and our streets are a war zone as a consequence. Carjackings has gone up every year since the city council laid off cops. The South Ward in particular is an absolute disaster right now. There have been 35 murders in the South Ward just this year. In the last 4 years since new leadership was elected in the South Ward, murders are up almost 40%. Your fruit speaks louder than your words. Our streets are more dangerous. Our young people are being shot and killed on the way to school. Our young people are being shot and killed on the way home from school. And that's attributable to decisions that the leadership has made. You don't lay off 170 cops and then don't expect these consequences. How we resolve it now is you have to have leadership with experience. I'm the only one running for mayor with any experience in law enforcement. I have a proven track record. As an assistant attorney general for the state of New Jersey, I led a crime plan for the whole state. We reduced violent crime throughout the state 3 years in a row. We doubled the graduation rate for kids in the juvenile prisons. We reduced recidivism by 26% throughout the state of New Jersey. I have a record. I've done this. A lot of folks talk about it, they march about it, they rally about it, they speak about it, but by the time they finish speaking, somebody else has been shot. And that's what we're doing in the city of North right now. We need new leadership, we need proven leadership. You elect me to be the mayor of the city when we see much better results.
So, it's one thing to be a thermometer and it's another thing to be a thermostat. So, a thermometer can tell you how hot it is, but only a thermostat can reduce the temperature. Anybody in here could point to the violence that's going on in the city. As a matter of fact, he's right. Violence in the South Ward and the West Ward has increased. And they told us that 90% of the violent crime in the city occurs in the South and the West Ward, where the most poverty and unemployment exists. Not because we have less cops, but because we have the most poverty and the most unemployment. He knows that. That's why he's running for mayor and not school board again. And I know that. That's why I'm running for mayor and not the councilman again. But the reality is this. The schools do have a relationship with Newark Police. Right now, Newark Police are inside the schools. That's the relationship that they have. They don't belong inside the schools. We need Newark Police on the corridors of the schools in the morning when kids come to school and at the end when kids go home from school. Our kids are being robbed every day, 6 and 7 and 8 at a time. People are stealing their cell phones, they're being beaten and jumped. And yes, we have kids who catch the bus from the North Ward to Central High School, from the West Ward to Central High School, from the East Ward to Central High School. And they're getting robbed. And so we need to take the police outside the school, from inside the schools and put them outside the schools and patrol what's going on. But more importantly, if you look at our crime plan, police is not the answer to reducing this kind of violent culture that we have, right? So if I was Tony Griffin and I had $100 million, I would invest in after-school programming, invest in arts programming, invest in programs that would engage our kids longer and keep them in school and not out of school on the streets. That's what I would do if I had that money. And when I become the mayor, that's what's going to happen.
So I'm going to the audience bowl now because we have not had a question from a parent yet. So this is a question from a parent in the audience. All the parents, raise your hand. All right. Yes, all right. Give the parents a hand. Yes. Yes. Laborers in the vineyard. So this is what one parent asked, guys. What would you do for special needs students? And how would you start programs that help spread awareness about autism? That's a big problem, right? Yes, Mildred, yes, okay. So let's start with Mr. Baraka.
So Central High School is probably the only other high school besides JFK, but we're the only comprehensive high school that deals with autism in the entire city. We have about 35, 40 kids right now that are autistic students that do an incredible job in our school with our students. People were fearful to send autistic kids first to Central High School, thinking that our kids are animals and we're gonna do something to them. But the relationship between our kids and the autistic kids in this school is incredible. And I would dare anybody to come over there and check it out and see what's going on in that program. What we need to do is to begin to develop more citywide programs designed to cater to autistic kids and special needs kids that are on the lower level of the spectrum and not the high level of the spectrum. We have to develop information sessions, parent engagement opportunities, things for the autistic kids at our school. Internship at City Hall. They intern at City Hall. So not only City Hall, we've been having trouble getting them in the county government, in the county courthouse, in the private sector. We need to create programs that engage a growing autistic population, by the way, in this city. And we're beginning to run out of room for the autistic kids at Central High School. Every year we get another group, and another group. And I think that that's a disability that is not being discussed in the city. So the mayor's office should be an advocate for special needs kids, should be an advocate to make sure that we are following all ADA requirements, that all recreation in the city caters to all special needs kids, that all programming, all conferences, all meetings cater to the kids that are the least or the most vulnerable in our society.
Yes, yes. Say that.
I just want to sort of alternate a bit, so Darren, would you respond, and then we'll go to Mr. Ramos and then Mr. Jeffrey.
The whole conversation tonight focused on all the challenges that we face, as though Newark Public Schools was an island on itself in terms of the resources. The thing that differentiates this city from the entire state is that we have 5 universities of higher learning, and a lot of research that goes on at those universities, a lot of those resources, as the mayor working with Newark Public Schools, a lot of the problems from autism to special needs and everything else can be addressed by the important work that is done at those institutions of higher learning, but it's not shared. In this city, it's like we have a lot of ships that pass in the night. NGIT, they get up and do their research. Rutgers, they do research. Essex County College, Seton Hall. But these universities don't work in concert with the city and with Newark Public Schools. And the additional resources and revenue that we can get based on research that we do and grants that we apply for, we can use to address not only autism, but a lot of the other special needs that we have in our school. As long as we continue to work in our separate silos, good work will be done, but the benefits of that work will never be visited on our Newark Public Schools. We have everything we have right here in our city to solve every problem that we have in Newark Public Schools, but we have to begin to communicate better with each other and to develop a strategic and comprehensive plan to deal with not only autism, but a lot of the other challenges that we have in special needs.
Parents with children with special needs often face, incredible obstacles in getting services for their children. And my 7+ years on the council, even prior to that as a member of the advisory board, there were literally hundreds of parents who came to our offices seeking assistance because oftentimes they had to wait. I remember a parent that had to wait at least 2 years to get an IEP for her son. And for parents who are limited English proficient and are not very active in dealing with the school system, that problem is even greater. And one of the most incredible experiences that I've had as an elected official is being at the promotional ceremony at JFK, honoring so many of our kids who are autistic. And autism was a problem years ago that you've heard of. Now you know of kids in your community, in your ward, in your neighborhood that have autism. We have adults in our community, in our city, that are dealing with autism. And one of the greatest needs that we have as a city is to partner and identify and fund and create an organization that's outside the school district that deals specifically with families who have children with autism. And they could be an advocate in conjunction, in my case, with my office on education to ensure that those parents are receiving the kind of attention and results that they need so that they can continue to provide a safe haven and a quality education for their child.
We have many issues when it comes to the way in which we serve children with special needs. A threshold issues, we have overclassification. We overclassify too many, particularly Black and Latino young boys. We have a 17% classification rate in the city of Newark. Oftentimes what happens is poor instruction or inadequate curriculum. We use that as an excuse to classify and categorize the baby. And so the first thing we have to do is make sure we have effective training, effective professional development, so we can really identify those young children who really do have an educational disability and those other children who just may need different instruction or may need more learning time, for example. Secondly, then we have to implement IEPs. And again, I'm very proud to, again, have a record. See, a lot of folks spend a long time talking but don't have a record, and you just hear them, it's like, it ain't my fault. They blame other people. This and there will have a record. For 7 years, me, an educational officer, and myself sued the North Public Schools because they were woefully delinquent in implementing IEPs. 2 years late, 3 years late. So the result of our lawsuit was additional resources coming from the state, additional compensatory education, the hiring of more IEP team members, including bilingual speech therapists, so that these IEPs are implemented more quickly. It still isn't where it needs to be, but it's better than where it was. So we have to implement these IEPs faster, because when you don't, that means you have kids who have educational disabilities who are sitting in classroom languishing, not receiving the services that they require. So both on the classification side, in terms of overclassification, which is a sickness and disease that doesn't receive enough attention, and making sure that we relentlessly implement these IEPs. The only way you're going to relentlessly implement these IEPs is if you have executives and managers who know what they're doing. This is not a rhetorical effort. This is a job of execution implementation.
Thank you. So we had questions from students, and we had questions from parents, but we haven't had questions from a resident yet. And so, there's some questions that are just filled with heat, and this is one of them. This is about closing schools. Whoa, right. Whoa. So now I'm really gonna have to ask your patience for this, because this affects a lot of people. There are a lot of heated opinions about this, but the resident asked whether you could speak about the schools that are slated to be closed. I suppose some of them turned into charter schools. And what would you as mayor think about that, or do about it, or work with the superintendent regarding it, if at all? So let's start with Mr. Jeffries, and then we'll go after.
I think the closing of schools is an extraordinary and it's a very crude remedy and should only be used in very limited circumstances. There may be some circumstances when you have to consolidate. So if you have one school that's 30 or 40% at capacity and another school around the corner at 30 or 40% capacity, you may need to consolidate those schools so you can have more resources to actually invest in educational opportunities for our young people. So I would support closure only in very extraordinary circumstances where we have schools that are near one another and we have to consolidate to be more efficient so that we can make sure we have the resource to invest in our kids. But anytime we even think about considering closure, there has to be robust community engagement. And that is something we have not seen in recent times in our city of Newark. We seem to be in a space where in the spring, we'll read the paper and we'll hear about proposals potentially to close some schools. I'm very proud in my time on the school board that I would have stopped some of these closures, including Miller Street, some other schools that the school district wanted to close. Some other schools where we need to consolidate for efficiency. Those are the kinds of things we have to explore in a time of declining resources. But this conversation has to be a robust one with the community. Parents have to be at the center of that. Community stakeholders have to be the center of that. There needs to be a robust planning process. Information needs to be shared with the community about the reasons the district is considering closing a school. This is not something that can happen in a 4 to 6 week window around budget time. There needs to be a year-long planning process with robust community engagement.
Thank you. I'm going to quickly last this time, so I'll go to Mr. Sharif.
I think the last possible resort should be to close a school. But there are two reasons why a school is closed. The school is closed because the performance levels and the targets that they set are not achieved. And some schools are closed because they used to be a certain population of kids in the surrounding area who attended the school. One example of that is Louise A. Spencer School. Everybody knew that Stellar Wright projects and other developments were there. When they blew up Stellar Wright projects and have the Hope 6 project, just for numbers' sake, they had to consolidate in that school. But like Shavar said, even when they contemplate closing a school, they should engage and involve the residents in the community in the discussion. I think the reason why a lot of people are upset when these schools close and other decisions are made is that they are not informed well in advance so they can participate in the discussion. When they feel like they're in the dark and then something happens, that's when residents and parents get upset. So 2 reasons why schools should be considered closing as a last result, that the educational goals that are set for them, they don't achieve, and for efficiency sake, they have to combine schools and close schools, because a school that used to house a certain population, they still have those facility costs, they still have to pay for the lighting and the heat. When you have a fewer number of students in that school, it puts a burden on the school budget. But in both of those cases, residents in the community should be in on that conversation so they're not caught blindsided.
Thank you. Mr. Ramos?
The closing of schools should be a rare exception as opposed to common practice, and it needs to follow a very specific set of standards which deal primarily with enrollment numbers. If we have a school that's struggling or failing, we all have to have the collective courage to say, look, we have to do something better on behalf of our children. And the first step needs to be reorganization, reinvestment in that school as a necessary first step before we decide to close. If we do have population shifts, which do occur in cities like Newark, then a school closing becomes a possibility. But the whole issue of having parental and community engagement, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be one of my top priorities as mayor. Because I believe as a district, as we go ahead and plan and reorganize and shift the district in different directions, if we don't have buy-in and support from our parents, those efforts are in vain. And I give Barringer High School again as an example of a reorganization effort that's working because parents were involved, parents were communicated with, and stakeholders, including elected officials and business leaders, were part of that reorganization process.
Thank you.
So I'm elated to hear that all of us, the candidates, are backing up off of the school closing idea, because, you know, a lot of us advocated that vehemently at these, especially at the board members, saying that if you didn't close the school, it was tantamount to genocide and all these other kind of things. So I'm happy that people are backing away from that around this whole idea of closing schools. And I'm also happy that people are saying we need to reinvest or invest in public schools that exist in people's neighborhoods. So I'm happy about that, because those are the things that have not happened. Like the fact that we need to invest in school. It's not the school that's the problem, it's the practices that take place in the school, and those practices can change. Effective practices are changed by leadership, by staff development, and by involving themselves in the community and investing in that school. We're also not talking about just closing school. We close boys and girls clubs to turn them into charter schools. So the idea is that we begin to invest in the institutions that serve our children completely, not walk away from them, watch them fail, and say, let's close it down so we can open up something else. That sounds like a sinister plot. The idea is that we make sure that schools are alive, that they're robust, and the real school choice is for a parent to be able to send their kid across the street from their house to a school that works. That's school choice. Don't tell me I have a choice when you allow this school to become dilapidated and allow this school to put all the resources here and say, oh, now you have a choice. That's no choice. Everybody's going to choose that. The idea is to fix all of the schools where our children are. Whether they charter schools, public schools, wherever our children are, those schools need to be excellent schools where our children are every single day.
So, good people, we are moving into the closing of the forum. And there was a question about arts that I wanted to just get out there, but instead of asking them the question, I want to first of all ask how many artists are in the room tonight? So we know we have Amina Baraka, we have this young man here. Would you guys commit to putting your ideas down about how we can use art to help promote literacy and to help engage our children around the formulation of imagination and creativity to help grow their ability to learn? Would you be willing to put that on paper and give it to them? So you're going to give your name to the people at the table in the back, because we're going to hold you to that promise. Hold your hand up again, all the artists. Let's give them a hand. And now I want to ask, and Amina Baraka is going to lead the pack. So I wanted to ask the candidates, you're going to accept that, right? and look at it and review it and see if it can be incorporated in your platforms. Okay, now, you're gonna get ready for your closing statements. I'm so happy. I wanna ask you all to say very quickly, what is the first thing that you're gonna do on the first day that you're in office? And then, as mayor. Yes, as it relates to education. And then you can go into your 90-second closing remarks. So, we're just gonna do this alphabetically. So, Mr. Baraka.
So, I just want to thank you again, Marsha Brown. I want to thank the candidates for having a very robust and civilized discussion up here. I'm okay, you know, I got a couple of bruises, but I'm good. So, I didn't get a chance to answer the question correctly when I opened up, so I just want to really deal with that. And I think the first thing is, what should the mayor be doing as a mayor in a school system that's on transition around school reform about the things that are about to happen? And I would like to put that in the context if I had the Zuckerberg money or the $100 billion, because that outlines a mayor's priorities. So my priority wouldn't be $43 million for a teacher contract, right? So my priority would be to engage the philanthropic community and the nonprofit community and look at the work that they've already done and the knowledge that they have and working every single day and use my resources to fill the gaps where that work has not been complete or made holistic. That's number one. Number two, I would also encourage the arts community in the city of Newark through the Newark Arts Council to begin to engage the school system and begin to create extracurricular programs and extended day programs in partnership with Newark Public Schools to begin to have opportunities for kids to be in school later. I would also engage the universities so they could begin to create a school to college pipeline to fight the school to prison pipeline. So we need to use the money to foster these kind of STEAM programs that Rutgers, NJIT, Essex County can use to get our kids ready and developed for college. So we can expand those universities, but expand them with our kids that are in them now. The last thing I would do is develop parent engagement and spaces of opportunity for more parents to be involved and engaged in the discussion around school reform. Not 5 people from New York, 2 people from Trenton, 3 folks that we know that are best friends, but the actual parents from all walks of life. Public school parents, charter school parents, parochial school parents, to have a rich discussion. And we cannot be afraid of democracy. So if you're afraid of democracy, then you shouldn't be running for mayor.
Alphabetical order. J comes before R, by the way. But that's okay. I'll go if you want me next.
Not going alphabetically.
That's what you said before.
I changed my mind. You know, women can do that. So, let's go.
I too want to thank, our dynamic moderator. Let's give a round of applause to Marsha Brown. She did a great job. I want to thank the Newark Trust for Education, everyone that's here participating. I want to thank the candidates who are here and also participating and discussing what is the city's most important issue, which is the future of public education here in the city of Newark. And my first action as mayor will be to form my office on education. And that office is going to be charged with the responsibility of setting up our active Youth Advisory Council. That office is going to be charged with the responsibility of engaging our parents in the decision-making process that our Newark Board of Education goes through, and more importantly, what the city can do in order to support public education in the city of Newark. I stated at the beginning that I'm running for mayor, not superintendent of schools, but I do recognize that the mayor of the city is the leading advocate when it comes to improving the quality of public education for all.
The first thing I would do upon walking into City Hall would be to convene all stakeholders. The superintendent, our philanthropic community, our parents, our political officials, our business officials, our university sector, our leaders in the cultural and artistic community, and to bring everyone together and say we have to work together for our babies. that there is nothing more important to the future of the city of Newark than making sure that every child in the city of Newark has access to a world-class education. And we need everyone in on that. We need all hands on deck, and we have to work together. People you may not like, people you may disagree with, the interests of our kids have to trump any narrow parochial interests that we may have. And then I want to make sure we work together on a vision that's really about empowering parents. Empowering parents to make more decisions that affect the lives of their own young people. Empowering parents with information so that they are educated consumers, so that they can make decisions not only about the schools that their kids attend, but also they can hold accountable the educators in these schools to make sure they're providing high quality services to our young people. We have to empower our community. Right? Too often in the city of Newark, we depend on political leadership, but I want to depend upon the people of Newark who are empowered, who are brilliant, and can make decisions not only affect the lives of our young people, but our entire city in a much brighter and powerful way. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank Marcia. I want to thank the Newark Trust for Public Education. But most importantly, I want to thank all of you here today. Can you give yourselves a round of applause? Because the one thing that all of us have in common is that we care about our kids, we care about our community, and we are passionate about making sure that all of our young people are prepared with the skills in order to be able to compete. But the first thing that I would do, I would convene my colleagues here on the stage, because I want to commend them for their important ideas and their contribution to the important discussion about education. The second thing I would do is what Shafar said, but that's what I'm doing already. Working with all of our important stakeholders, our colleges and universities. I've talked to you about some of those programs that I'm working with them on. Our big businesses, our developers, our residents, and most importantly, our parents and caregivers. There's nothing that we can't do, and I've demonstrated that if we work together as a community. But this digging our heels in ideologically, I'm for charter schools, I'm for district schools, I'm for private schools. We should all be for the success of all of our children, because in a real sense, they are the future of this city. And if we send bad signals to them that we're in this camp or that camp, then what kind of example are we setting for them? So everything that we need in terms of expertise and knowledge, we have. All we have to do is do a better job of coordinating that in order to move our education system forward. And if we can move our education system forward, we can move our city forward. Thank you for coming. Continue to stay engaged in this important discussion. Thank you.
So ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I want them all, they're all standing, right? There is no democracy without choice. And look at the choices. Aren't they wonderful? Aren't they just wonderful? They are bright, talented, smart people, and you have to make a choice. So let's take the next 8 months and figure that out. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Marcia, and as we say goodnight, this house has been packed. There's a seat open in the whole place. We thank you for that. But there's one job that we need to recognize: the person behind the bell. God bless you, Isabel. Isabel Benzie did a terrific job. And of course, the entire Newark Trust staff, Tanisha McHarris, Natasha Dyer, and the dozens of young people that worked as ushers and helped out. Thank you all.